The store lights hummed softly overhead, casting a pale glow across the nearly empty grocery aisles. It was almost closing time, the hour when exhaustion settled deep into bones and thoughts slowed into quiet survival. At register 4 stood Lena Harper, her shoulders aching, her smile practiced but fading. Her shift had started before sunrise, and now the clock crept toward 10, each minute stretching longer than the last. Lena was a single mother, though no badge announced it. The truth lived in the dark circles under her eyes, in the way she checked her phone between customers, waiting for the message that her neighbor had put her daughter to bed safely. 5-year-old Ellie. The thought of her warmed Lena even as fatigue pressed down hard. The speaker crackled. "Attention customers. The store will be closing in 15 minutes. Lena straightened, scanning the front doors. Only one customer remained, moving slowly, almost hesitantly, toward her register. He was an older man, thin, his coat too light for the season. His shoes were scuffed, his hair unkempt, and his hands trembled slightly as he placed a few items on the conveyor belt. Soup, bread, a small carton of milk. Lena greeted him gently, the way she did with everyone. He nodded but did not meet her eyes. She rang up the items, watching the total appear on the screen. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a card, sliding it across the counter with visible uncertainty. Lena ran it once, declined. She tried again, slower this time, as if patience might change the outcome. Declined. A quiet sigh escaped him. He swallowed and cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I must have miscalculated. Could you keep the soup aside? I'll come back tomorrow." Behind him, no one waited. Still, the embarrassment in his voice filled the space between them. Lena looked at his hands, the way his fingers curled inward as if bracing for rejection. She thought of nights she pretended she wasn't hungry so Ellie could eat more. She thought of standing in the same store months earlier, counting coins, praying her car would not fail. She glanced up at the security camera, its red light blinking steadily. Store policy echoed in her mind, drilled into her during training. No freebies, no exceptions, no personal payments for customers. Warnings had been given, jobs had been lost. Lena exhaled slowly. "It's okay," she said, her voice calm. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her own worn debit card, and slid it through the reader. The machine beeped, approving the payment. Before the receipt printed, she added a few more items, moving quickly. An extra loaf of bread, another soup. The man stared, eyes wide. "You don't have to do that," he whispered. "I know," Lena replied, offering a small smile. "But I want to." She packed his groceries carefully, handed him the bag, and met his gaze fully now. His eyes glistened not with pity, but something deeper. Gratitude, relief, dignity restored. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "You have no idea what this means." "Take care of yourself," Lena answered. He nodded and walked slowly toward the exit, the automatic doors parting, as if recognizing something sacred in the moment. Lena turned back to her register, her heart pounding. That was when she noticed the silence behind her. Too quiet. She looked up and saw her manager standing near the office door, arms crossed, lips pressed thin. His eyes flicked toward the security camera, then back to her. Her stomach dropped. She finished closing her register in a haze, hands moving on instinct while her thoughts raced. She had done the right thing. She knew she had. But knowing did not pay rent. It did not keep the lights on. It did not guarantee tomorrow. When she stepped into the office, the door shut behind her with a soft click that sounded final. The manager gestured for her to sit. His computer screen glowed, paused on a frozen image from moments earlier. Lena at the register. The old man, her card in her hand. "Care to explain?" he asked. Lena opened her mouth, then closed it. What explanation could justify compassion in a system built on rules? She straightened her back and met his eyes anyway. "I helped someone who needed it," she said quietly. The manager's expression did not change. Outside, the old man stood beneath a flickering streetlight, clutching the grocery bag to his chest. He turned back once, looking at the store, unaware of the storm unfolding inside. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. He only knew that for one brief moment, someone had seen him. Inside that office, Lena felt the weight of her choice settle fully upon her shoulders. She thought of Ellie's smile, of bedtime stories, of promises whispered into the dark. Whatever happened next, she would face it standing. She had chosen kindness. She did not yet know the cost. The manager did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The stillness of the office was heavy enough. Pressing down on Lena's chest as the paused security footage glowed between them, the image showed her mid-motion, card in hand. Kindness caught like evidence under fluorescent light. The man beside her was frozen in grainy detail, his face turned toward her with quiet disbelief. "You know the policy," the manager said at last, folding his hands on the desk. "Employees are not allowed to purchase items for customers. It creates liability. Expectations." Lena nodded slowly. She had memorized the rules long ago. They lived in her mind alongside the rent due date and the number of days until her next paycheck. "I understand," she said. "Do you?" His tone sharpened. "Because this isn't the first time you bent rules. You stay late. You help too much. You blur lines." She swallowed, helping too much. The word sounded strange, almost cruel, when spoken aloud. "He was hungry," she replied quietly. "He didn't ask for much." The manager sighed, as if she were exhausting him. "Intent doesn't change outcome. This store runs on procedure. What you did is considered misconduct." Lena felt something inside her fracture, small but irreversible. "Are you saying I'm fired?" The manager hesitated only a second, effective immediately. The words echoed, hollow and unreal. "Fired." The chair beneath her felt suddenly unstable, as though it might disappear too. She stood slowly, smoothing her uniform out of habit. There was nothing to argue, nothing to beg. Pride held her upright, even as fear clawed at her ribs. "I'll collect my things," she said. Outside, the night air was colder than she expected. The parking lot was nearly empty, shadows stretching long beneath flickering lamps. Lena walked to her car, each step measure controlled. It was only when she closed the door behind her that the tears came, hot and unstoppable. She gripped the steering wheel and let herself cry, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. Ellie, rent, groceries, tomorrow. When she finally drove home, the apartment lights were already on. Her neighbor had left dinner warming in the oven, a kindness Lena barely had the strength to acknowledge. Ellie ran to her, arms flung wide, curls bouncing. "Mama, you're late." Lena knelt and hugged her tightly, breathing in the scent of soap and childhood. "I'm here now," she said. Later, after dishes and bath time, Ellie climbed into bed clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Lena sat beside her, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. She had practiced this conversation in the car, rehearsed calm words that wouldn't frighten. "Sweetheart," she began, "Mama lost her job today." Ellie blinked, absorbing this carefully. "Did you do something bad?" Lena shook her head. "No, I helped someone." Ellie considered this, then smiled softly. "That's good," she said. "Helping is good." The simplicity of it undid her. Lena turned away so her daughter wouldn't see the tears gathering again. "Yes," she whispered. "It is." The days that followed blurred together in quiet struggle. Lena filled out applications at the kitchen table, while Ellie colored beside her. She checked her email obsessively. No replies came. Bills piled up like silent accusations. She skipped meals without thinking, saving what little remained for her child. At night, doubt crept in. What if the manager had been right? What if kindness was a luxury she could no longer afford? She stared at the ceiling, listening to hum of the refrigerator, wondering how long before it went silent. Across town, the old man returned to the grocery store the next afternoon. He moved with the same careful slowness, but his eyes searched the registers anxiously. Lena was not there. He waited, then approached another cashier. "Excuse me," he said politely. "The young woman who helped me last night, is she working today?" The cashier's expression shifted. "Oh, you mean Lena?" "No, she was let go." The man stiffened. "Let go?" She broke policy, the cashier added, lowering her voice. Paid for a customer's groceries. Manager didn't like it. The old man felt the weight of the bag he'd carried home the night before, suddenly heavier in memory. Because of me, he asked. The cashier hesitated, then nodded. He stepped away slowly, gripping the edge of a shelf for balance. The guilt struck deep and sharp. He had accepted help without knowing the price. The kindness that had warmed him now burned with consequence. Outside, he stood beneath the same streetlight, looking at the store with new eyes. Something settled in his chest, firm and resolute. He did not know everything about Lena Harper, but he knew enough. This could not be how her story ended. He straightened his coat, lifted his chin, and reached for his phone. Find her, he said quietly. And for the first time in a long while, he meant it. The old man did not go home after leaving the grocery store that afternoon. Instead, he sat in his car for a long time, hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on nothing at all. The city moved around him. People walking, traffic humming, life continuing. But inside him, something long dormant had stirred awake. For years, he had blended into crowds by choice. No chauffeurs, no tailored suits, no recognition. Just a coat that looked older than it was and shoes that invited no questions. He had learned that wealth built walls higher than poverty ever could. When people knew who he was, they spoke differently. They looked differently. They wanted things. But Lena Harper had wanted nothing. He closed his eyes and remembered the way she had looked at him. Not with pity, not with suspicion, but with the same tired kindness she likely gave her own child. She had not asked the story. She had not weighed whether he deserved help. She had simply acted, and it had cost her everything. The man's phone vibrated softly in his hand. He answered without looking at the screen. Yes. We found her, came the calm voice on the other end. Lena Harper, single mother, one child, recently terminated from her job. The words landed heavier than expected. Single mother, one child. He pictured the extra soup she had added to the bag and understood now. That kindness had not come from excess. It had come from sacrifice. Where is she? He asked. In a small apartment on the east side. Struggling but stable. For now, he repeated quietly. I want to meet her. There was a pause. Sir, perhaps it would be better if... No, he said gently but firmly. Not like that. No cars. No announcements. Just me. That evening, Lena sat at her small kitchen table, sorting unpaid bills into careful stacks. Ellie was on the floor nearby, humming softly as she lined up toy animals. The apartment was warm but dim, the single overhead bulb flickering faintly. A knock sounded at the door. Lena froze. No one ever knocked anymore. She stood slowly, smoothing her sweater, and opened the door just enough to look out. He stood there with the same coat, the same tired eyes. For a moment, her heart tightened with panic. Had something happened? Was he angry? Had he come to apologize again? I'm sorry to bother you, he said. May I come in? She hesitated, then nodded. Of course. Ellie looked up, curious but unafraid. Hi, she said. The man smiled, something soft breaking through his guarded expression. Hello. They sat at the small table. Lena poured tea into mismatched cups, hands steady despite her confusion. You didn't do anything wrong, she said quickly. What happened wasn't your fault. He shook his head. It was because of me. No, she insisted. I made my choice. He studied her, the strength beneath the weariness. Why? He asked. Why help me? She looked at Ellie, then back at him. Because someday I hope someone helps her. The room was quiet after that. I owe you the truth, he said finally. He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim folder, placing it gently on the table. My name is Henry Caldwell. Lena frowned slightly. The name tugged at something distant. That doesn't mean... I know, he said. He opened the folder, sliding a document toward her. Financial statements. Headlines. A familiar face, sharper and younger, staring back from glossy paper. Her breath caught. This can't be real. I never wanted you to know, he said. Not when you helped me. Not even now, if I could help it. She pushed the folder away. I don't understand. Why pretend? Why let me lose my job? I didn't know, he said, pain clear in his voice. And when I found out, I wanted to fix it without insulting your dignity. She stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. I don't want money, she said. I didn't help you for that. I know, he replied. That's why I'm here. Ellie watched silently, sensing the weight in the room. Henry noticed and lowered his voice. I lost my wife last year, he said. After that, everything fell hollow. People spoke to me, but no one saw me. When you looked at me across that counter, you didn't see wealth or failure. You saw a person. Lena stopped pacing. Her eyes softened. Loneliness doesn't care how much money you have, she said quietly. Henry nodded. Exactly. He leaned forward slightly. I won't offer charity, but I will offer opportunity. A job, training, stability, childcare support, all earned, all yours if you want it. She stared at him, overwhelmed. Pride battled relief. Fear wrestled with hope. Why me? She asked. Because kindness should have a place in the world, he said. And I want to build something where it does. Tears slid down her cheeks. Unashamed now, Ellie climbed into her lap, wrapping small arms around her neck. Lena hugged her tightly, breathing through the moment. I need time, she said. Take all you need, Henry replied, standing. I'll be nearby. At the door, he paused. Thank you, he said, for reminding me who I am. After he left, Lena sat holding her daughter, the future suddenly wide and frightening and full of possibility. She did not know what she would choose yet, but for the first time since losing her job, she felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Hope. The morning sun spilled to the thin curtains of Lena's apartment, painting the worn walls in soft gold. She sat at the small kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold between her hands, staring at the unopened envelope Henry Caldwell had left behind. Inside were details, job descriptions, training options, support resources, but what weighed on her was not paper. It was a choice. Across the room, Ellie sat cross-legged on the floor, humming as she carefully dressed her stuffed rabbit in a scrap of fabric. Children adapted quickly. Lena had learned. They accepted uncertainty as easily as joy, trusting the adults they loved to catch them when the ground shifted. Lena had not slept much. Pride whispered that she should keep struggling alone. Fear reminded her how close they were to losing everything. But another voice, quieter yet stronger, returned again and again to the same truth. Accepting help did not erase dignity. It honored it. She opened the envelope. The offer was clear, respectful, and nothing like charity. Entry-level administrative work at one of Henry's community-focused subsidiaries. Paid training. Flexible hours. Child care support on-site. No sudden wealth. No spotlight. Just stability, earned and steady. Lena closed her eyes and exhaled. She called the number at the bottom of the page. Yes, she said simply. I'll try. Her first day was nothing like she had imagined. There were no towering offices or marble floors. The building was modest, filled with natural light and quiet purpose. People smiled when they passed her, not because of who she knew, but because that was the culture. She was shown her desk, introduced to her supervisor, and given a schedule that allowed her to walk Ellie to school each morning. Henry did not appear. At first, Lena wondered if that was intentional. Then she understood. This was not about him saving her. It was about him standing beside her without casting a shadow. Weeks passed. Slowly, the knot in her chest loosened. Bills were paid on time. The refrigerator stayed full. Ellie began sleeping through the night again, her laughter returning in easy bursts that filled the apartment like music. One evening, as Lena tucked Ellie into bed, her daughter asked, "Is the old man our friend?" Lena smiled. "Yes," she said. "He is." Henry visited on a Sunday afternoon, arriving with nothing more than a paper bag from a bakery. Ellie greeted him enthusiastically, showing him her drawings and insisting he sit on the floor for tea parties. He did so without hesitation, laughing more freely than Lena had ever heard. In those moments, She saw the man behind the fortune, not a savior, not a symbol, just someone who had been alone for too long. A month later, Henry asked Lena if she would accompany him somewhere. She hesitated, unsure, but agreed. They drove to the grocery store. Lena's heart raced as they walked inside. The same lights, the same aisles, the same office door at the back. The manager was there, stiffening when he recognized her. Henry spoke calmly, firmly, with no anger in his voice. He explained policies that punished compassion and rewarded indifference. He cited examples, data, and human stories. He did not threaten. He informed. By the end of the conversation, policies changed. Training was revised. Employees were given discretion to help when humanity required it. Lena did not return to that store. She did not need to. Life settled into a rhythm that felt almost unreal. Mornings filled with purpose. Evenings with warmth. Ellie's school projects began featuring houses with gardens and people holding hands. Not perfect, but hopeful. Henry became a constant presence, not overwhelming, never intrusive. He attended Ellie's school recital, clapping the loudest. He fixed a broken cabinet in Lena's kitchen one afternoon, insisting it helped him feel useful. On birthdays, he gave books instead of toys, sitting down to read them aloud. One evening, as they shared a simple dinner, Henry grew quiet. "I spent years thinking success meant accumulation," he said, "but it was emptiness disguised as achievement." Lena listened. "You gave me something money never could," he continued. "You reminded me that being seen matters more than being known." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You gave us stability when we needed it most," she said. "That matters, too." Outside, the city hummed, unaware of the small family forming within the apartment walls. Months later, Lena received a promotion. She accepted it with confidence, knowing she had earned every step. She volunteered to mentor new hires, teaching them that kindness and competence were not opposites. On a quiet winter night, Lena stood by the window, watching snow fall gently. Ellie slept soundly. Henry's coat hung by the door, familiar now, no longer a symbol of disguise, but belonging. She thought back to that night at the register, the blinking camera, the choice made in a heartbeat. She had lost her job, but she had found her future. In a world that often punished compassion, kindness had still found a way to return, multiplied and transformed, not as a reward, but as a foundation. And somewhere deep within her, Lena knew this was a story Ellie would carry forward. Not about a billionaire or firing, but about a mother who chose humanity when it mattered most. Because sometimes the smallest kindness builds the strongest family.